Hey,
Hello.
John. Howdy. As a winemaker, I know a little bit about it because his that approach is the Steiner eurythmy approach is taken seriously in vineyards and fine wine, probably more than in any other kind of commercial agriculture. There are biodynamic wine growing, although that may be more common now that things are biodynamic. But you see organic more like a fresh market than you do biodynamic.
Yeah.
But in wine, it's a big thing. So
Yeah, he had a big influence on the whole agricultural
yeah,
industry as far as I'm aware. I'm not really sure
yeah,
the extent, but yeah. So today we come together
yeah.
for an astrological reading. I
Woohoo!
we've discussed astrology here and there, and the topic of birth charts came up, and
Yeah.
Stephen asked me if I would look into his chart for him, and we suppose why not do it publicly?
There we go. I should say first though, before we do this, that I've never done this. I mean, I know that I'm a Cancer. I don't know anything about what planet. I know I was born either under a full moon or close to a full moon, I think, and so a lot of water symbols, and that was really it's it's surprisingly it's sort of like my religious past is so voidal. My astrology past is really, and I think it has a large part to do with my brother was an astronomer, and when we were little kids, the relatives always would confuse it with astrology and
Mhm,
ask him how the astrology was going, and he used to get so upset because
mhm,
we were science guys,
mhm.
and so I think I have never investigated it. I've thought about it briefly now and then, but it was just so anathema, right? For
Yeah,
so
it's really
so
been.
I'm coming at this. We haven't discussed what you're about to say at all. So this is all going to be, and I'm going to be quite ignorant, right? I mean, although I understand the movement of the planets and everything, so and I know why it's retrograde and all of that from a scientific point of view. So maybe not so bad.
Yeah, I'll do my best to kind of mediate that for you.
Yeah.
I should say as well, I'm no professional in this regard, honestly, it's a very I think that when doing astrology readings for people, people can I think it's a serious thing, like in the sense
Yeah.
to be take, it's
The only reason I would have you do this for me is because I know you would take it seriously, and because you're not a professional in it. You're doing it from a different space, which
yeah.
is so.
The
I
thing
think
is
for
though
me,
is
it
that
seems like a unique opportunity to have it. If you're ever going to have it done, this is
well, I'm honored. And I
now
just
you,
say it in the sense that it's kind of like a psychotherapy session
yeah,
in a sense.
yeah,
So that's the thing is I don't have any certification in this regard. So
right,
I'm gonna do my best to be um courteous and conscientious and respectful in
yeah.
this regard
Well,
as
I'm
well.
I'm pretty open. Um, I can't imagine how it would get close enough that I would bet, but who knows? I mean, I have no idea what's
You
about to
might be
happen.
surprised.
So
You might be surprised.
let's do it.
All right, so firstly, starting with the moon here, the quickest moving planet, we see that it's at 29 degrees of Scorpio. It's one of the more challenging signs for the moon, and the moon has to do with like emotions and moods. And in a watery sign, water signs generally have to do with emotional stuff as well, feelings, and
All right.
um, I need to make sure that I'm not trying to sound like a professional here because I'm really not a professional.
So every 5 minutes, you could say, "I am not professional. I'm doing this for a friend."
And Sun in Cancer. Um, I also, I suppose I should also say we share a birthday.
Yes, we do.
Kind of crazy, July 13th. Um, yeah, that's pretty wild. Blew my mind.
Hey, you were
So
surprised. You thought I somehow knew your birthday. It's like, how would I know your birthday,
yeah, I
John?
was like, bro, you pulling my leg. This is crazy.
What else do you know about me?
Yeah, so Sun in Cancer. Um, Cancer's often it's also kind of a watery emotional sign. It's often connected with like the home life and care for care for loved ones sensitivity, and also like it can be defensive at times. Like it's got the symbolism of a crab.
Yep.
These are supposed to actually be crab pincers.
Yep.
And it's like the hard shell, soft inside. I think, speaking for myself, as a sun at 21 degrees, you know, I can definitely be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Cancer can also be a very warm and loving, very loyal, devoted sign as well. So that's that.
Something is not.
Have you been looking just at a galaxy this whole time? Okay. Okay, we got Moon here at late Scorpio, and then the Ascendant here with the Sun just below the horizon, Mercury peeping over the horizon. As you can see, there was a full moon 4 days
On the 17th.
Yep, 4 days after, and then there was, and that will also be in a lunar eclipse in 4 days.
Oh wow, huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's a lunar eclipse 4 days after.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And then yeah, pretty cool. And then also I was looking at briefly the asteroids, and first I have to say this. I'm gonna play a very short
Okay.
video.
Okay.
As above, so it is below, and as it is below, so it is above. This kind of mirror effect, you know, that the planetary cycles are rhythmic, repeatable, and predictable, and they're not causing our life. They are mirroring events. I don't think they're causal forces, but it does boggle the mind. And it's certainly not a rational, materialistic way of looking at the world. It brings back the mystical, the magical. You get a sense of a divine mind at play. I want to say, you know, for me, the turning point with astrology wasn't even just Hellenistic astrology. I was at the NCGR conference in 2019, pre-pandemic, and I went into one of the rooms to listen to Asteroid Astrology is his website, I think. But the guy is like absolutely in the rabbit hole of the minor asteroids. And when I left his presentation, my whole reality changed. And for me, that even adds another weird layer to life. You know, I have a client who, you know, it works with Ken Wilber, and the asteroid Wilbur is on his midheaven. Another client who channels David Bowie. For one of the things she does, channels the dead David Bowie. The asteroid David Bowie is on her midheaven. I have a sommelier or two in my client base. Dionysius or Bakkhos, the asteroids for wine and the, you know, for fermented grape, are on their midheaven. And then you begin to ask really, really deep questions. It's like, how could this be true? How could I be born and then find that I have these incredibly specific asteroids, including people's names, aligned in my chart at critical places at intimate degrees?
I've
gone down that rabbit hole?
The asteroid bearing my mother's name is is less than a degree from my IC. So
you're right down at the root, yeah. You can't make this stuff up.
I was looking at the asteroids, and check this out. This is Bakkhos.
Dionysius or Bakkhos, the asteroids for wine and the, you know, for fermented grape.
Bakkhos was the Roman god of agriculture, wine, and fertility. And look at that, right at your. This is crazy, right on the sun. So this is conjunct the sun. It's at 20 degrees. Pretty crazy. This is so basically right here, right on your sun and my sun is the asteroid titled Bakkhos, which has to do with wine and fermented grapes. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, I've been making wine my whole life. I've been making wine 42 years.
Yeah. Pretty wild. And so the sun is largely about like your kind of ego consciousness, or like your waking awareness, and like, you know, your sense of self and you know, your day-to-day awareness. So like, yeah, it's been a central feature of your consciousness for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That's funny.
Yeah. All right, so that's we've had Mars retrograde coming back into Cancer, approaching your sun. Yeah, it's pretty crazy that. So we have Bakkhos on our
Yeah, no, you should be a winemaker. You see,
this pagan deity.
right? And I like that it's Bacchus and not Dionysus. I think that for my winemaking career, I think that I am more of a Bacchus kind of than a Dionysus.
I'm not too familiar with the.
Yeah, it's just the feeling that I get between the two and how I've always thought, well, I'm more like Dionysus, but I think now that I'm looking back on my career, it's like, no, I'm really more of a Bacchus, more of a Bacchus than a Dionysus. It's hard to be a Dionysian winemaker in our world, because you just be, I don't know, we wouldn't be taken seriously, I think. But yeah, so I've been doing a lot of reflection on Noah, the Noah story, him building an altar, him having these experiences and with the angel and building the ark, and this big event. Oh my, these 20 verses in Noah had such a big impact on me, and in this very positive way. Let's figure out what Noah was up to. The techne had gone wrong, but Noah used it properly, and that Noah was using it properly to save the part of the world that was good from the destruction of the techne, of the part that was bad.
Yes.
Right. And that he was the guy. He was also taught medicine, right? He was taught from the.
He was Raphael.
And that makes a lot of sense to me, because one of the things he does after he gets off the boat is he makes wine, and that's I know all about that, and that's a big step from. From hunter-gatherer, maybe a little agriculture, but to making wine is, and that's a medicinal, right? The wine is sort of that he misuses. He then misuses, and then leads to the Tower of Babel. But there was that moment. See, that's what it is for me. It's that moment of like perfection where he's Raphael. Raphael is the angel of medicine. It's that moment where he builds the altar, and he builds it of God's materials, not his. Right? He doesn't use cement. Right? He doesn't break the rocks, or he just right, and then offers unto God. And then the blood, right? So the blood being sort of the ultimate of the life force. So he's offering life back up unto the originator of life, what the Creator made, not what you made. That nothing you could make could be good enough to do that. In the Orthodox liturgy, the height of the liturgy is where we offer God His own unto His own. That's what we say. For you, this is yours for you. It's the, and so that's why. But it's not only. It's not only that Noah, all this time, way early in the Bible, is doing what we now also do in an Orthodox church, and our altar is made of wood, and it's held together by wood sap, and there's no nails. You're not allowed to use a glue that's a compound of man. It's a natural thing, and that's what Noah did. So there's a big difference. We offer God's son unto him, and he was just offering, an animal, but then the sun had not appeared yet. So it's just that it was, I don't know, it was it's such a modern moment in the way that I see the church. It was such a modern moment way back then. The fact that he's also doing wine, and then the wine leads to the corruption, is like, yeah, that sounds like good pharmacology. It's
very interesting. Like the I don't know, I get a little hung up on the thing about offering God His own, like, because part of it really strikes me as correct, insofar as like we also talked about how you have the natural at the center of the temple, right. And it strikes me as correct in this idea of sub-creation, insofar as like, so Sherry would talk about it, and I almost called her Sophia. Sherry would talk about it in terms of Sophia, where the things of this world are the wisdom of God, and like what we do is we recombine.
Yes.
Can you remind me of the order of events in the Noah story? Like, because you mentioned that he was the first to create wine. Is that?
Yeah, that's after he lands.
That's pretty wild.
That's after he gets off the boat.
And then the altar the wine came after that?
we think of modern now, the wine is on the altar, the blood of Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
and also the bread, which is also similar. This is kind of where I'm going with this, insofar as also like bread and wine are this like this thing that are their base elements, the natural God-given elements are are actually like lesser than like when we we elevate them into something more precious through our
right. But the wine, the fermentation, that's not a thing you did,
So it's about waiting. Okay, it's not like an ingredient that you add, but you can add an ingredient. You can make sourdough, and this sourdough is basically a special kind of dough that you make and then you keep around a long time so that it becomes fermented. Really, it's about fermentation. What's about fermentation? It's about kind of death. It's related to the symbolism of death, and it's like when you let something, usually it rots, right? It becomes rotten and then it's no good. And this is what we do when we do fermented food is kind of similar to leavened bread. You ferment some food so that it lasts longer. It's an interesting thing. It's like you let it rot, almost rot, just almost rot, and you got to do it really well so that it doesn't rot. And once you do that, then the food lasts longer. It's interesting. It's like letting it die makes it last longer.
Yeah.
It's like you got to know how to do it. It's like a skill. It's really subtle. If there's bacteria or something, let's say you're doing vegetables that you're fermenting. If there's a bacteria or something, it's not going to work. So it's like you got to be really skilled. It's a skill. It's a skill to use. It's like putting the ingredient of time in your food. Really, this is how you can see it, of death, time, and change. Putting it there in the food on purpose, and that ironically makes it last longer. So it's an interesting thing.
It is absolutely fascinating, and I guess one of the most clearest examples of that is wine, because if you know how to make good wine, it doesn't just last longer. It's like almost like eternal, like centuries, and it's like better and better and better because it dies.
Yes, it gets better. Exactly. This is one thing I didn't do, by the way, make wine. So I don't know if you have experience with that, but I don't. But I maybe one day I'll try. It's a little more demanding, than making other things. Maybe one day I'll try it. But for sure, I would learn a lot from trying to make wine. But it's like you're giving it a prolonged life by letting it die just a little. See, so it's related to the symbolism of sleep that I've been talking about lately, because sleep is something that almost death, it's like close to death. A touch of death is how we can say it, or a taste of death, or a pinch of death, maybe. It's like just a little, and then this death, small death, keeps you alive, because if you don't sleep, you're going to have some serious problems.
That's sort of the idea of the that's kind of that idea that you're saying. Noah, he was also a healer, right? He knew how to use medicines, but he learned that from Raphael. Yeah,
and it's kind of a redemption of the Enoch story in a sense. And the other thing that makes me think of is this the Kabbalistic idea of Tzimtzum, where God creates the space and then puts a spark in the middle, and the spark eventually grows to reconnect with God, and how in that image it's that it is that ultimately the sparks in the world are of the same essence as God, but they're just like fundamentally kind of separated in the sense where they can't see their ultimate unity. In terms of this idea of offering up God's own. It's very interesting.
It's a lot. It
really is.
But I was very, and maybe something about it was more like maybe I knew more than I knew, when I read those, and maybe my subconscious had made these connections. I don't know though. The only thing about these things that I'm still kind of adamant on is I just don't see chaos. I just don't see it. I don't think of the salt waters as chaotic. I think they're usefully constructed to provide an alternate to the way things to the way things will be. You know, it's like a rather than somewhere in the middle is this is it. It's somewhere in the middle. Well, over here is chaos, and over here is is construction. I think here's construction, and when there's very little of it, it looks chaotic. But I don't know why.
I wouldn't.
But I also think I have this also physicalist point of view that the universe is extremely well tuned to produce us. So the idea that there's to me there's no chaos. It's like beyond tuned to in its physical parameters and the way the pace of time is. You know, my new time thing. Like, I don't see the chaotic. I see the less orderly, but I don't see that chaotic. That our creative world can have a chaotic point of view.
I think it's probably also just the different, like, you thinking about chaos differently. Like, you're coming out of a physics context where chaos is like noise, like, or something. It's like chaos.
Yeah, but it's a well-ordered noise. It's not a I would tend. It's an ordered non-orderedness. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm reminded of the words consonance and dissonance, such that you also have to have dissonance in order for kind of things to take place. Like, in a sense, like, if we didn't have, it's not to say that, like, somebody hitting the wrong note is good, but it's that ultimately it is kind of good in a sense because it allows us to appreciate the better notes, and it develops the music in a sense. Like, so it's like, it's a thing
it's a thing you do in physics too. When your signal is so small that you can't parse it out from the background, if you add noise, you can actually boost the signal in a way that you can then detect the signal.
That's how I think about like quote unquote chaos. You know, it would be like this.
Okay.
You know, it's like because that's also like medicine in a sense. It's like this when you give somebody a poison. And you give them the small amount because it heals them ultimately. You know, it's interesting, and connecting that with like pharmacon and wine. And it's very interesting.
If chaos can be the noise you add to increase the signal, you know,
that's largely how I think about it. And I actually think that even the order side, when things become hyper ordered, I also think about that as noise in a sense. It's hard to describe, but like that's the real thing about.
If the noise is necessary to make the signal intelligible, then the lack of noise would be the thing that would make the signal unintelligible again. I mean, that's a sentence that'll like, well, if noise is the thing necessary to add to a weak signal to make the signal intelligible, that perhaps a strong signal without noise is again a signal made unintelligible. The noise is not just the thing you add to make the signal. It's not that, well, then we could throw away the noise because we have the signal. No, because you wouldn't have it without the noise. So what happens if you think to
and there
yourself,
also wouldn't be, and it's also not a static thing insofar as there wouldn't be any development. You know, like for things to continue, there has to be, like we know from genetics, right, that if you don't have some noise in there, that things are going to eventually won't be able to progress. There's no progress without that. So if you're thinking of that like chaos as that, so I guess why not think of that as the noise thing? I really love this idea of God being a marriage of God is the marriage of heaven and earth, the marriage of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. You know, such that like it is that interplay, which is most the divine, and I think that when Pageau uses the word chaos, he's kind of thinking about this more this potentia of
when John the Baptist baptizes Christ, the Holy Spirit doesn't come into Christ in a non-incarnated way. The Holy Spirit comes down as a dove. Like, what is that? The dove is another instance of incarnated. So you have the incarnated, incarnated spirit. Now we do not think that way.
Everything is incarnation. I think about it as corporeal and like the feminine principle, and I think about everything as having both a a masculine and a feminine aspect, such that everything has a principal pattern type of thing, and everything has a body. Even spiritual beings,
Right.
even like ideas have a body in a sense, like, such that I think when the Holy Spirit shows up, it's like I think that the dove is the Holy Spirit showing up, but it's not reducible to the dove. It's like
Yeah.
the signal is,
Yeah.
I think, actually what the signal is most ultimately, like the logos is the interplay of heaven and earth,
Right.
such that like you need both heaven and earth. Like Christ is the logos, like the incarnational principle